right, she was a loyal Iraqi citizen living under Saddam Hussein's brutal regime. When the U.S. invaded in 2003, she was raised to hate America, and she did. But 9/11 changed everything for her. Rafraf Barrak ended up working as a translator for NBC News during the Iraq War. And when insurgents targeted her and her family, NBC News correspondent Don Teague fought to bring her to the U.S. and get her political asylum and a college scholarship. Now, Teague now works for CBS, and he and Rafraf have written the brand new book, Saved by Her Enemy, an Iraqi woman's journey from the heart of war to the heartland of America. This is an interesting title because you grew up thinking America was your enemy.
Yeah, growing up under the Saddam regime is something that you just get used to the fact that everyone is telling you that this is, America is not just an enemy, but it's an entity that's always in a war with your country. So, of course, you grow up to hate it and not really appreciate who they are.
After the fall of Baghdad, Rafraf and her family, they didn't have a lot of choices. The one thing she had was she could speak English, and she speaks English well, as you can tell. So she took a job despite enormous risk from insurgents who don't want any Iraqis and didn't at the time cooperating with any American entity to work for, at the time, NBC News, to be a translator in the field, and it was a very dangerous job.
But you go into your whole background. And you were raised a Muslim. You even told the story that you were there with your mother on 9/11 when watching on television the Twin Towers being hit, and your mother saying this is not right, this is not in the Quran. Tell that story.
Well, when it happened, we were at the house, and my mom was sitting there just like with a mouth open, looking at the TV, like thinking this is something that we did not, like we did not do that, and it can't be, you can't be doing something like that and call it for the purpose of religion or for the purpose of defending God. There's nothing godly about that. And so she was crying, and so we grew up with, my mom supporting these kind of ideas that, we have to always stick to what God tells us, but at the same time, it's through what our parents tell us.
Was your mom then an anomaly? Because your name, Rafraf, and your mother fought apparently bitterly that you didn't have that name, but was taken directly out of the Quran because your father wanted it there when your father got back from fighting the Iranian-Iraq War.
Yeah, well, my dad has a way of selecting names, and he selected that name from the Quran. And my mom, of course, it's nothing against the name being from the Quran. It's basically just because the name is a rare name, and I've never met anyone with that name all my life so far. And so my mom fought for that purpose, so no one would make fun of it.
So you will be teased named Rafraf in any country you live in. Well, you have that name.
My wife came up with the idea when we were going to name my son 11 years ago. Why don't we name him Scout? And I said I wouldn't name my horse Scout. So I kind of related to that story a little bit. She's going to kill me for saying that, but so be it. But you grew up under a very dictatorial regime. And you described, for example, the kids that you went to school with, you tell a story in the book that one of the boys told a joke about Saddam Hussein.
Yeah,
what happened?
Well, the kid was telling a joke, basically, and there was this whole, there's these people who would go and tell on anybody that would mention the president in any way. And so when the president name was mentioned, of course, they went and told the headmaster, and immediately a guy, like a car showed up, took up the kid and whoever was with him and just disappeared, and everyone assumed after that the kid was just dead or something. So
and despite what she had going on with the government that she was under, she was no fan of the United States at the time growing up.
You were not, because you were brainwashed pretty much.
Well, it's like this. You go to you live your life. You know that this is the rules. The rules are: do not talk about your government, do not say anything about the president, and just don't talk politics in any way. And at the same time, you have one country that's your enemy. So just be careful of that, and you're good to go.
And that was it. And then you sneak around. I saw to meet the boys, but we don't have a lot of time for that. Why don't you describe, first of all, we'll get into your meeting in just a second here, but when shock and awe began, you were watching from a distance.
We were watching from the roof of my house, yes. Me and my brothers would go up the stairs and go on that roof and watch because it's our way of looking at the outside world. We did not have power, we did not have TV or radios to listen to what's going on or see it, so it was our only window.
And from a distance, in Baghdad, this wasn't a distance, there were cruise missiles going right over the top of her house.
Why don't you tell us the story how you met, the courageous work that she did, and we'll talk about how you got here and how your whole life has changed.
Sure. In 2004, in February, I went for my second stint over there of about 5 weeks. And by the way, I don't consider myself a war correspondent in any way. I'm just a guy.
Yeah, but you served for yourself.
There.
You served.
I did. I was in the military for 11 years as well. But went over there to do this, and she was the translator who was basically assigned with me every day on my stories, and we developed a friendship. I mean, you can tell she's an intelligent, lovely young woman. And we were at a school one day doing a story, and insurgents set off a bomb in an attempt to kill us, the children who were there, the military. You know, that's a bonding experience. We survived, but I started really thinking about the fact that I was going to get to go home in a few weeks, and she wasn't going to get to go home. She was home, and she was going to continue putting her life on the line every day. And she was specifically being targeted.
You were being targeted because you were an interpreter. Yes. And the insurgency did not wanted anybody that was doing your job dead.
Yeah, well, they wanted, they wanted us to not work with the Americans because they considered us as spies if we are working with any.
But you were making what was considered in Baghdad money a fortune.
Yeah. Of course.
She was supporting a family of 12, all of her brothers and sisters and her parents, because they all basically lost their jobs when Baghdad fell. Right. So she wasn't going to quit doing that job.
Well, it's a great, fascinating story by both of you, and great work. Good to see you. Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it. Good luck with the book.
Thank you.
All right, and you can watch my entire interview with Don Teague and Rafraf Barrak on the Great American Blog at foxnews.com/Hannity. And finally tonight, we are only 25 days from the release of my brand new book. It will debut on March the 30th. It will be out at the Reagan Library. It is called Conservative Victory, Defeating Obama's Radical Agenda. Now, we have a lot planned when this book is released. We're going to start it out at the Reagan Library. We'll be in Salt Lake City. We will be in Cincinnati. We will be in Dayton. We'll be in Minneapolis. With Governor Palin and with Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. We'll be in Grand Rapids. We're going to be in Atlanta. We're going to be in Pittsburgh. We're going to be in Philly. We're going to be in Orlando. And I can't even remember everything else. But the good thing is we'll have live on locations this program from a different city almost every night. Now, details about the tour. You can go all weekend long. Hannity.com, and hopefully you can order a book as well. And by the way, all the proceeds I would get from the book, well, that's going to go to the Freedom Alliance Scholarship Fund. But it is a plan for victory so we can stop this radical agenda. It's at Hannity.com, and that does us for it tonight and for the week. I hope you have a great night. We'll see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.